Welcome to the ORM Assistant lesson. During this lesson, Naval Safety Center experts will provide an overview of the ORM Assistant roles and responsibilities. You have full control of the pace of the lesson. Feel free to pause, rewind, or re-watch the lesson as needed. Let's get started.
All right, so here we are. We're going to talk about you are an ORM assistant, and what are your roles and responsibilities? One of the big questions we get. All right, I've got it. I understand how to do the 5-step process. I understand TCRM, but how do I get ORM to work in my unit or my command? So let's look at your responsibilities. You've been selected. You're it. I'm going to take over for the command. I am going to be the command SME. You are now the subject matter expert in ORM. You've got it down pat. You know how to do the 5-step process. Remember this. This is very important. You are not to do the 5-step process on every evolution in your command. That is not your job. You're not there to write the deliberate risk assessment. You are there to facilitate using your SMEs within your command on what the mission is and task is when developing that deliberate risk assessment. Okay. You are there to assist. You're also there to train command personnel. So how do I train my command personnel? Hey, I've got the NKO courses online that need to be done. You've got the individual managing your risk that is to be done once every 3 years by your command personnel, including civilians if you've got them that working with you. Okay, and you also have the supervisor course, the manager course, and the assistant course. And those are to be done as the person fulfills that role and responsibility. Okay, so let's get started. Let's ask ourselves some questions. So what's the starting point? What are some critical steps? How long should it take? Who's responsible? And how do I know if it's working? All right, so there are some key areas that we look at for successful ORM integration. We look at policy, training, application, measurement, and accountability. If anybody's familiar with the SMS program or the safety management systems, that's what you're looking at. 4 pillars, kind of the same thing. We talk about policies, etc. So how do we implement our policy? We get this question all the time from commands. Do I need to write my own ORM instruction? Not really if you don't want to. We've got safety policies that COs put out. If they want to put in there saying, hey, we're going to follow the ORM policy, the 3500.39 series, that's good enough. You don't need to write a separate ORM instruction for your command. There are instructions out there from CERF 4 and Air 4 that has it detailed in there what the command's expected to do for ORM. It refers back to the OPNAV 3500.39. Use that as a good tool for yourself. Establish policy and expectations for application for on and off duty ORM. That's important. Make sure we're using it ORM off duty. We're really good about on duty. We know that, but we have to look at our off duty problems we've got out there in the fleet and address those. All right? Make sure you're using that when we're doing implementing a policy. Training. Why do we train? Man, we train for everything, don't we, in the fleet? Constantly. We always hear, we get it at the safety center, the POW comes out, and there's always something we jump to is what's required for training this week. Do I have anything I've got to go online to get done, or is there a PowerPoint presentation I need to look at, or do I need to look at an instruction? Why do we train? It's to get everybody on that same sheet of music. We've got to make sure everybody knows why we're doing this, why we do ORM. It's out there so we get the mission done effectively, efficiently, using our resources correctly, using our personnel, and getting things done right so we can do it over and over and over again. When we look at the training, don't overdo it. You know, we're talking about it needs to be done once a year, according to the OPNAV. There are different ways to address it. You can do it within a work center. You can address it at a safety stand-on if you want to, or you can just do it to where they go online and do the GMT that's online. Don't go crazy. Don't over-inundate personnel to get ORM training done. Talk to them about it. try to relate it to is a day-to-day process of doing things correctly. You do that, that's effective risk management. So let's apply it. How do we apply risk management? Do we always just go out, hey, everybody make sure you're being safe out there and use ORM? Well, yes and no to a point. Everybody hears that. That's kind of lip service when we hear that out in the fleet. The biggest thing is when you're out there teaching it, make them understand why we do things the way we do them. Why do we always get concerned about using a publication out there doing our jobs, using the checklist, using the right trained personnel out there to do the job? That's risk management. Whether personnel recognize that or not, that's what we do. Understand the TCRM. Understand the ABCD model and how it applies to doing the job to get the job done. Using that, assess, balance your resources, communicate, do and debrief helps us to get everybody on that same sheet of music during the application of our ORM and to get things done. Getting that mission accomplished. Remember, mission, mission, mission. Can't emphasize that enough. It's not about safety. If we do things correctly, safety is a byproduct. Measurement. There's a good one. Everybody always wonders, how do we measure if I'm using risk management correctly or not? Well, there's a couple forms we developed out there in the fleet. We have a program assessment sheet and an evolution assessment sheet. We did not develop these at the Safety Center in a bubble. We went out to the fleet, to our assessment commands, and asked them for assistance. How do we look at things? What do we need to look at to see if a command is using ORM correctly? One of the things we first ask is, do a program assessment sheet when you get back in your command. Go back in there as the SME now and go, well, let's see where we're at. Look at it. It talks about, to administrative and training, some feedback and additional comments. Easy to do. It doesn't take that long to see how we're doing out there. You got that done? Great. Then take a step forward and go to your evolution form. Evolution forms, there is no set guideline in the instruction of how many you need to do. This is something as the SME you need to take a look at. Hey, I go out there and do an evolution form. I do my first evolution form on an operation, and the command does great. Okay, maybe I have to do one a quarter then. But if I go out there and I do an evolution form and we do very, very poorly in looking at the PBED process, planning, briefing, execution, and debriefing, if we do very poorly in that, hey, maybe we need to take a look at this and take a round turn and maybe do a couple a month until we get things going to where personnel understand what are we looking at when we're looking at the evolution, making sure everybody's on that same sheet of music. Don't keep it a secret either. Show the command. Show them what's going on. Show them what's going right. Show them what's going wrong to where we can learn from our mistakes and get better. Remember, lessons learned, best practices. Get out there and share the wealth of information you've got to help the command out. Okay, so we'll look at accountability. When we look at accountability, we look at what's working, what's not, right? How do I say this to the fleet to say, hey, I need to be accountable for it. Hey, guess what? Now you can put in your fit rep or your eval, hey, I'm the ORM assistant. Well, that's great. Sounds like a bullet for you for your evaluation. But how about putting in other things also? You've got boards out there for EAWS, ESWS, etc. Put some ORM questions in there. Bring it up in there. Let them talk about that. Incorporate it in that person's qualification process. Hey, when you're doing a watch bill and you're looking at qualifications for the watch bill, ask them some risk management questions in there. You realize that standing a watch is actually ORM? Why do we stay in watches? 4 hours freezing on a flight deck for no reason? No, there's reasons behind this. And we use that tool out there, risk management, to help us get the mission accomplished. We've got a watch to do because we want to make sure nothing's happening to the ship. When we look at integration timelines, that's a big question everybody looks at. Well, how long should this take, right? There is nothing set in stone. There are some commands that will be better than others when you go back to your commands, that things are working really well, or some commands that, hey, maybe they're standing up or they've changed personnel, COs, XOs, the triad might be not working exactly the same together, to where let's take a look at it. When we look at policy, it pretty much should be done within a month. You can use the OpNav like we talked about earlier, or look back at your Surf Pack and Air Pack instructions and see what's out there. When it comes down to training, hey, this is your responsibility. Pull up the Fleet Temps report. See how everybody's doing. Get them to do the training as per the OpNav and get it done. The application, like we talked about before, making sure it's a day-to-day evolution. Everybody understands we're using TCRM on a regular basis. It's briefed in the maintenance meetings in the morning. It's briefed in the division quarters, etc. Not as a bolt-on. Okay, don't say, oh, we got to do ORM now. No, use it, weave it into your day-to-day operations to where everybody starts to realize this is a tool to be used consistently, constantly. Right? Measure it. You're the SME. Get out there and measure it using the program and evolution sheets. Like we talked about earlier, there is nothing set in stone how many you need to do. Keep a folder of it, see how you're doing, because at the end of the year, your Echelon 2 is going to ask you, hey, do you have any lessons learned, best practices, what worked, what didn't? You can feed it up and let them know what's going on. The accountability piece, you're accountable as the SME, but you're also spread across the board. Talk to the personnel standing those watches. Talk to the boards for your EAWS and ESWS to get those questions in there. Help you out in the long run.
You just listened to an overview of the ORM assistant roles and responsibilities. Before moving on, review the responsibilities listed in OpNav Instruction 3500.39 series and rewatch the lesson if needed.